Now, catfishing, you will know, is when somebody steals somebody's picture or their identity. It's usually used on dating apps to initiate deceptive relationships with unsuspecting targets. Fianna Fáil Senator Lisa Chambers had her picture stolen and used as bait in a catfishing. She joins us now to tell us why she wants the law to catch up with the internet. Good morning, Lisa. Lisa, you there?
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Can you tell us about your own experience and your own situation?
Yeah, mine was quite minor actually, and it was only because of, I suppose, recent events with the Two Johnnies podcast and then Ellen Coyne's podcast with the Independent Cruel Intentions that we've started talking about catfishing so much more. So for me, it was maybe about 5 years ago, and my cousin in England contacted me to say that my picture was being used on a site, and she sent me a screenshot. I'll be honest, I wasn't overly upset about it. I thought it was strange. She said she contacted them to say, stop doing it. That's my cousin. And I never heard anything more about it. And I didn't really think too much about it at the time. You know, lots of strange things can happen when you're working in politics. So I just moved on. But in recent times, I've thought, God, that's actually what that was, or could have been what that was. And, listening to the story, the incredible story that I think a lot of people have listened to on the Two Johnnies podcast with that fictional character, Cora. And then more recently with Ellen Coyne's podcast, Cruel Intentions, where she spoke to Evie. So you're hearing two sides of the story. The victim, the person that has been catfished, who has been duped into a fake relationship with a fake online persona, and then also the person whose information and picture has been taken to use in that duping. So there are two victims of this crime, and it can have really devastating effects. I think with the Two Johnnies, to be fair to them, I don't think that he was overly traumatized. I think he kind of chalked up to experience, saw the kind of lighter side of it, and they got a great story out of it, and it has brought the issue to so many more people. But equally, they did reference one or two other men that remained anonymous that had been in a fake relationship for almost a year, and you can imagine the impact that would have on somebody. And similarly, when you think of Evie, who Ellen Coyne spoke to, she's clearly very traumatized by what has happened to her, what is still happening to her, and has absolutely zero recourse through the law. And the Gardaí can't help her because there simply isn't any laws in place to make this a criminal offence or to make it illegal.
And why, Lisa, do you see it as so traumatic? Because when you look at the spectrum of things that can be done to people on the internet, whether it be very intimate information or photographs that could be shared, whether it could be theft or con artistry, it seems to be at the lower end of that spectrum, no?
It can be. So it really depends on, I suppose, the scale of it, how long it's been going on, what you may or may not have done in terms of compromising yourself. So, it might have been going on for a few weeks and you realise, oh, this isn't real, and you move on. And that's on the milder end of the scale. But take Evie, for example. Okay, so she's the person who her image has been stolen and is being used actively to catfish other people. She's a working professional.
That's your experience, isn't it? I mean, that's what occurred to you.
Say that again, sorry?
I said that's what happened to you. It was yours was used on a dating site, is that right?
It was, yeah. And again, it never had any major impact on me in that it was happening over in London. So it just didn't impact me, if I'm being honest about it. And I never really thought too much about it. But listening to Evie's story, she's living in Dublin. This is happening in the place where she's living. She has found out that the person who's using her information knows where she lives, knows where she works, what she works at. So it almost strays into the other bill that I brought earlier this year around stalking. It's that feeling of not feeling safe, that somebody has access to information that they shouldn't have and are using that to create an online persona that's not you. And Evie speaks about, she's worried that if she goes into her local coffee shop, is someday somebody going to come up to her thinking that they're in a relationship with her that she's never met before. So it impacts on your day to day, and it can have a very detrimental impact. And she has on several occasions gone to the Gardaí, and they are powerless to do anything to help her. She has also contacted Tinder, the dating website. They refuse to release any information about the person that's using her details, her pictures, which sounds incredible, but that is actually the law. And then if you look at it from the other side, you think about the individuals that have been duped into an online fake relationship. If that's going on for months on end or possibly even years, and you think you're in a relationship and suddenly you find out you're not, that can have an emotionally devastating impact on somebody. And again, what's been done to them is not illegal and it's not considered wrong in the eyes of the law. But I think we would all agree, Anton, that morally it is wrong, and it is something that I think our laws need to catch up with, because we're still really adapting to the online space, and more people are now living online in terms of dating for the first time online. They're living their lives very publicly online. and there's very few protections there to stop people taking your photos and your information and passing them off as their own.
And of course, we've seen that in contexts beyond the dating apps and dating sites as well. I mean, the broadcaster Miriam O'Callaghan had significant challenge in getting information or getting her image removed from, I think it was used in false advertising. Former presidential candidate Gavin Duffy, the same thing, discovered that his image was being used in advertising that had none of his imprimatur on it and was effectively exploiting his profile. So
actually, before you move on to that, Anthony, that's actually a really good point. You've mentioned there two very high profile people who have the means to go to court to actually get that information and get those details taken down. And that's one of the things that I've highlighted, in that, you could potentially take a case through the High Court to try and force the social media companies to give you the information that you want. But it's a very costly process. And if we're honest, it isn't really accessible to the average person. So there is that imbalance as well. I think what we need to do is empower the Gardaí. First of all, make it a criminal offence so that the Gardaí have the basis to go to social media companies or to dating apps and request that information without being blocked from getting it. Because as we all know, dating apps, social media companies, they will resist all efforts to release information unless they absolutely have to do so under the law.
They will also resist anything that causes them to step out of the algorithm, because human intervention costs a huge amount of money. And if dating apps have to go through all of their users and figure out who every individual is and whether or not the images and information relates to that information, the business model starts to fall apart very quick.
It does, but I think there's another side. I think the social media companies and the dating apps are missing a trick here, because we know from, I suppose, catfishing becoming more widely discussed and people getting a better understanding of it and the detrimental impacts of it, that many people are opting to not go on dating websites now because they don't feel safe or they don't feel they can trust the information. So I think if these dating websites want to maintain their business model and actually continue to be successful and for people to trust what they're offering, they're going to have to provide better protections for people. And simply putting up a stone wall and telling somebody, sorry, we can't give you that information, when somebody can go to them and say, that's my picture, look at me, that's me in that photograph, and that's not my profile. I think any reasonable person would say that those companies should be assisting that person in getting the information taken down.
How complicated is the legislation going to have to be? Because it is one thing to take action against companies where they may have their European headquarters domiciled in Dublin. It's another to take action against companies which may be based in the Cayman Islands, they could be based in Southeast Asia, almost impossible to directly impact and not subject to Irish law.
Yeah, I mean, that's always going to be a challenge when we're dealing with the online space. But remember, Anton, a lot of these companies are headquartered in Dublin, and we are part of the European Union. So there is a wider, I think, legislative scope there to try and curtail their activities and ensure that they at least adhere to the law of the land where they're operating. But it's not just about tackling the companies that are providing the platform for this information. It's about making it a criminal offence for you or I or anybody else to engage in this type of behaviour. So that if you find out the person that lives down the road from you is the person that's doing this, that you have recourse through the law to actually get justice against that person. There's no deterrent currently. And I think a huge part of making something a criminal offence is that deterrent element, to try and put the word out there that this is actually illegal, it is a criminal offence, it is wrong, and you will be prosecuted if you're found. That in of itself will do two things. It should stop some people from engaging in this activity, and it will provide better protections for victims who at least will know that they can come to the Gardaí and actually try and get justice through the legal system, which currently neither of those two things are possible.
Given that you're a member of one of the governing parties, have you raised this with Cabinet colleagues? Have you seen any appetite for such legislation?
I haven't raised it with Cabinet colleagues. It's still in the very early stages of getting a bill drafted. I don't foresee any opposition to this, to be quite honest. We've had, informal conversations within my own party in Fianna Fáil. Just lots of people are discussing the two podcasts that I've mentioned, the two Johnnies and Ellen Coyne's Cruel Intentions podcast, and just saying, God, it's again, like lots of these situations, isn't it amazing that this isn't illegal yet? So like I said, it's not, we're still trying to catch up with the online space. These are issues that didn't exist a decade ago because people weren't using dating apps and dating websites and online spaces as much as they are today. So we just need to catch up and we need to modernise our laws. We've identified a gap. The Department of Justice have confirmed that catfishing is not a criminal offence, the two situations that I've referred to. So we know there's a gap. I'm a legislator. I believe other legislators will also see that there's a need to bridge that gap and legislate for this. So I don't foresee any blockages, and I think that I will have the support to bring this legislation through.
Is there more than just the issue of using somebody else's image for deception that's in that gap currently in legislation? Because if you look at the kind of technology that's coming in now with things like deepfake video, where people are able to manipulate still images or video of another individual to make it appear that they say something or that they do something that isn't the case, is that covered by any Irish legislation? Is that prosecutable?
If it's done for the purposes of defrauding somebody, then yes, it is covered. But it's weak, if I can put it that way.
But let's take you as a politician. If I make a deepfake video of you and have you take a political position that is not your own, or have you say something that is offensive, am I prosecutable?
Well, I would have thought that because you're interfering in elections, then potentially yes, but I can't give you a clear answer on that. And that's the very issue, actually, in terms of deepfake videos. That's the big concern, is around electoral interference and interfering with the electoral process and elections in any country. So that is a big concern. And honestly, there isn't an answer or a solution to that just yet, because the technology is so advanced. And you know, and I know, and your listeners will as well, that you can put out something that's fake and that's false, and it will travel right around the country. By the time you actually catch up with it and put the truth out there, you'll never reach everybody that has watched that fake video. So it is extremely serious, and I don't have all the answers here today, but I do think we have to be flexible and be dynamic when it comes to updating our laws to deal with the online space. Do
you believe that you have sufficient resources in terms of the government departments and the government itself in dealing with this kind of area? Because if you look, for instance, at the 2016 experience in the US, if you look at the Brexit campaign experience, and if you read what Cambridge Analytica did during that period, it is evident that those involved in government and those involved in the civil service were a country mile behind the tech operatives who were working for nefarious reasons. Do we need to generally upgrade our capacity to deal with these kind of challenges?
We do. And you asked the question, do I think that we as a country have the resources or the capabilities to deal with this alone? I don't. And I don't think we ever will. And I think that's why, as a member of the European Union, it will be a collective effort by all member states to tackle this particular issue. It's too big for any one country, I believe, to deal with it sufficiently. And as you said, these operatives are these people working online, those that can do these things with very advanced technology. They don't recognise borders. They can be anywhere in the world, in any country at any time. And I just don't think we can do it on our own.
But we have a particular responsibility across the European Union, because, as you say, many of the institutions, when you look at that €400 million fine levied by the Data Protection Commissioner only this week, that's a function of we being the domicile for so many of those tech giants. That puts a lot of this on our shoulders.
It does. I mean, but I do think there's a recognition. Like, okay, yes, many of those companies are headquartered in Dublin, but this is their European headquarters, so they don't just operate in Ireland. And I think there is a recognition that no one country can tackle this issue on their own. There is a lot of work happening at an EU level across all member states, working together to try and share resources, share knowledge and information, and try and build that capacity across the European Union. And you think back to the cyber attack on the HSE. We were powerless to stop that, but this is a concern for every member state. So I do think there's a lot of work happening. I think there's a recognition across all countries that this is a huge issue. You've mentioned Cambridge Analytica in terms of the Brexit referendum. You mentioned the US elections in 2016. This can happen in Ireland as well. We are not immune to this by any means. So it is an area I think that we have to focus on. And I do think that the public are aware of it. Often you think that it's an issue that's maybe happening somewhere else, but I do think the public are concerned about this issue, primarily because they saw firsthand the impact when our HSE was the victim of a cyber attack.
Lisa Chambers, thank you very much. That is Fianna Fáil Senator Lisa Chambers. And if you've been impacted by anything in this discussion, volunteers are on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the free phone helpline number 116123, or you can email joe@samaritans.ie.